Manus flat on the canvas. We are ready to rock and roll. Second round of action. There is a cut on Manus.
Yeah. Jesus.
Martial arts. Yeah.
Like my man B-Hop, who got dropped out the ring last night. I need a little judo baby. I need me a little judo baby, and let's do it, Ron. Let's hit me up.
I see you were telling me this. You've got a face for radio.
That's got a face for radio.
That's nice.
Martial arts chat.
Martial arts.
Hello and welcome to the Martial Arts Chat podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by A1 Fight Gear.
Martial
A1
arts.
Fight Gear use the latest cutting-edge boxing gloves for professional and amateur fighters, gym enthusiasts and kickboxers. Local and national gyms in the UK, do yourselves a favour, go check out a1fightgear.com. If you want to get into shape, get back into shape, go to beastgear.co.uk. Use the coupon code MartialArtsChat to save 15% off your purchases for core sliders, straps and barbell pads and complete strength and conditioning programs to suit your needs. Finally, we're also sponsored by World of Martial Arts Television. Woma.tv produces, finds, acquires, commissions and presents all you ever wanted to know about martial arts. Discover techniques, exercise and forms from your favourite martial arts. Explore martial art philosophies, health, culture and spirituality. And so to our guest here today, martial artist and instructor in things such as Muay Thai, Taekwondo, Karate, Boxing, BJJ, you name it, he's on it, Mr. Mick Tully. He also runs his own podcast, Mick's Martial Arts, and we got in a lengthy chat about just about everything and anything, man. It's a really good one, and I hope you enjoy it, guys.
Anybody in martial arts, you're there and you go, right, okay, if I'm staying over one night, I'm not staying over 2 nights. Yeah. So you drive up and you get on the road at 5 a.m, and you gun it all the way up the motorway. So about 9 o'clock, you're going down past the View cinema, down the Leith Walk to get to the foot of the walk to get down to where Rick's is, and you see all these characters outside, and they are on it, like they are like half out of their minds.
They've been on it for months.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, in Edinburgh especially, I noticed it in Glasgow as well, with the football up there, is like that. It's not like just homeless people get drunk. It's like normal people. Yeah. Normal people go, Saturday, this is what I do now. You're drunk at 9 a.m.
Yeah, man.
And they hold down jobs and they do everything.
Functional, right?
It's the way forward.
Mad.
Yeah, man. So you want to kick off? Well, I follow your lead, man. You tell me what to say. We'll go.
It's a good way to start with Buckfast talk. I like that. I don't know. We'll maybe just like chat about you and your life, because I was reading obviously your dirt sheet. Like you're everything, it seems, man. Muay Thai, Taekwondo, BJJ, boxing a wee bit as well. You done a lot.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's it's one of those things. But years like nowadays call it MMA, won't you? Yeah. But for me, when I first started training, when I started reading about it, because initially, you just knew karate, you knew kung fu, you knew taekwondo, and really ironically, especially in the UK, what we didn't realise was, we didn't realise that we had more than enough indigenous fighting skills in this country without having to look to the Far East. And I remember training with a guy years ago, a very well-known karate guy. I won't mention his name, spare his blushes, but he never used Japanese terminology, and this was back in the mid '80s. And first time I ever trained with him, and he was like, I was still of that. I still am. I like all the ritual that goes with everything. Yeah. I know you can turn around and say spinning back kick, but Mawash the category sounds cooler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So of course, when you're younger, you don't want you know the crack yourself. When you're younger, what's on your doorstep isn't cool. What's on the other side of the world is cool. And I could never work out, especially the more I got into the training, I couldn't work out how people didn't think that boxing, especially in Great Britain, we've had some of the greatest boxers of all time. We created this Queensbury rules thing, and then wrestling we had, especially going up your neck of the woods. As soon as you got past Lancashire, those guys, the wrestling was crazy, and then later on we had like Billy Riley, and we had the Snake Pit, and we had the guys doing wrestling. Yeah, around there. So, but we had Westmoreland wrestling, we had Lancashire wrestling. You have Cornish wrestling down south. And I was like, but why are we looking towards judo? But that was a little bit later on. When I first started, I was mad. It was karate, and because if anyone's ever listened to an interview of mine, or ever spoke to me, or ever been to one of my ever been to one of my seminars, I'm always at pains to explain to people that, and it's not because I want people to, think that I'm some sort of inspirational character, because I'm not. I'm just an ordinary guy. But the first 16 years of my life was just horrific. I would say a good 80 to 90% of my formative years was spent in abject terror of a couple of guys at school that used to bully me, and my father, who used to horrifically beat me. And I was beaten. I was like a prisoner in my own mind, because I can't ever remember not being afraid. And I remember reading, like, believe it or not, American comic books. And, I love the archetype of good versus evil. And I like I've never liked anti-heroes. So, in like nowadays you go, oh,
it's cool, like the bad guy. Hi.
Yeah. And I'm like, no way, man. I want the good guy to prevail. And then obviously the way that they used to be able to prevail was, you get bitten by a radioactive spider, you become like the ultimate immigrant, like Superman, come from another planet, or you turn around and you just do the old Batman thing, which is just do loads of press ups, loads of sit ups, train. And it was, I'm being really, really glib about it, but I even when I was a young kid, I used to look at it and I think, so just sheer force of will can create the person you want to be.
Yeah, man.
And then obviously it's really cliche, but I bought into it like 100%. And then obviously Mr. Miyagi comes along, and you see that. And again, it's cliched as hell now, but yeah, it is another good versus evil, and it's a guy who's a marginalised outsider with no friends. He's got no support, and it's stories like that. Yeah, like Karate Kid is very, very, it's very, very cliched now, but those stories are still there. This is why you still have emo. Well, we don't have emos, unfortunately, anymore. But we used, that's when you get the marginalised teenagers, and that's why I really like. I see it now more in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu than ever, where you get introverted people going into it. And they just go, right, I'm really obsessive about something. It's like, you look at the Meow Brothers, would they be the two guys I'd bring out if I was chasing women in my 30s? No. But do you know what? I swear to God, if I needed two phone of friends on on Millionaire, they'd be the guys to speak to, because these guys they're just geeks.
It's true, man. That's absolutely, you're spot on about the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu thing, because it's like, a lot of I love my brothers that I roll with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like wherever I'm at, Hellfish, Scottish Hit Squad, Grip House, whatever. But yeah, a lot of these guys outside the mats, like, I'm not hanging with these guys like fucking Autism Awareness Week, man. They're all just like, do you know what I mean? I'm not getting out in common with the boys because of how their personality is, but on the mats, man, we're brothers.
Yeah, but you see, this is again, this is, without sounding Joe Rogan, this is where you go deep early, man. But it's like, we're in a really strange position in history right now, where young men have no identity. Most men don't have any identity, and I really feel sorry for women especially, because yourself, any woman you meet that sticks in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu more than a year is an absolute savage.
Yeah, got to be.
Yeah, because the thing is, we don't have, without sounding, again, Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson on this, there's no equality of outcome in jiu-jitsu. It literally, where you go in there and go, well, equality, whoa, yeah, we're all equal, and you're like, but you're not equal.
No. That's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's like a harsh reality, and it's a life lesson as well. You can plug it into your life.
Exactly, and it's the dark mirror, man. Because what they do is they turn, if you stick in this more than 3 years, you take 6 months off, you go back, and first of all, you don't put much stock into the belt anymore, because I don't care. I know blue belts that tap out black belt.
Yeah.
right? But what you will find is because we use that as an internal sort of, well, not a barometer. We basically use that to measure. So we look at the belts and we look at the stripes to measure where we are. And what you do is you take your foot off the gas for 2 weeks. You go back and one guy's got a stripe and you're like, damn. And then next thing you know, he's hitting you with stuff that you don't even recognize.
Yeah.
And then a year later, he's right where you are, and you're like, how has that happened? And then you've only got two options then. You can bitch and cry and go, this is out of order, or you just look at him and go, right. You go in, you look at his card, you see how many times he's been training when you haven't been, and you go, yeah, it isn't time served. That's the other one. Now it's like, yeah, BJ Penn, 3 years black belt, 3.5 years. Gunnar Nelson, 4 years, and you go, right, yeah, but look how often they were training, and like when you're training 3-4 times a week, that's great. But when you're training a day, that's when.
Oh, what happened, mate? Sorry, I lost you.
Oh no, sorry, I don't know what happened there.
Getting excited.
Yeah, no. When you're training 3 times a day, right? That's when you're gonna get the growth. And as we were saying, jiu-jitsu's the one, because it really is. It's to paraphrase Batman here, it's not the art we want, but it's the art that we deserve. So it's that whole or the other way around. But it is that it's never been more timely than ever, because you literally have a vast percentage of the population who are sitting there and they're crying in their salted caramel latte, stroking their beard, looking at their Birkenstocks, going, "Oh my good God! Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard to be a grown up in today's society. I can't buy a house." And then you've got guys going out and they're going, "Yeah, I'm going to work on the house bit. I'm trying to get on the property ladder. But right now, my immediate problem is this guy here is trying to choke me out." And it's analogous for life, because it's. You can't, you have to be informed by the past. You have to be mindful of the future. But if you're not in the fucking present, sorry for swearing.
No, you're fine. Sorry.
But if you're not in the present, then it's, I don't know, get into Taibo or something, because it's the only thing I found after 34 years of being in martial arts where, and don't get me wrong, I still love my Kali, I still love my Jun Fan kickboxing, I still love my Muay Thai, still love my boxing, but it's the one thing that it will keep you accountable for the rest of your life as a human being, in regard to just crazy stuff like, I'm in the car, should I beat my horn at that guy because he's not going quick enough through the lights?
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Aye, exactly.
Yeah. And every now and again you look at it and you go, God Almighty, and you just think to yourself, that guy there, he could be the guy. So do you know what? I'm just going to wait. Patience is a virtue. And again, what jiu-jitsu teaches you, once you get past 30 to 35, what it does teach you is we got 5 minutes in this round. 2 minutes in, they're putting the hammer on you. If they can't break you down and they can't submit you, and you're hunkered up for a little while, you just go, right, okay, this is a tactical retreat. And then you look at the clock and you go, right, yeah, especially now at 50, I look at it and I go, right, yeah, I got 90 seconds of madness left in me. That's my game.
Yeah.
That's my game. And what I do is I look at it now and I go, right, I'm good for 3 minutes. So what do I do? Do I just go 3 minutes and gas?
Yeah.
Yeah, or do I pussy out for 3 minutes and just hunker up? But then you look at it and it sounds really crazy, but it's like, how many people on the planet have actually discovered that for 3 minutes they've just got pure savagery in them? Because
it's never going to last. You can't be at that level of like raw all the time. Yeah, I like what you're saying about sitting in traffic jams. We'll probably just go with this, man. Let's just record this. See, when I'm training, especially now I'm training for a competition, right? But when I'm doing the competition rounds, it's early in the morning. I like classes at night, when I've done my day and I can go and do a bit of technique and do some rolling at the end. But if I'm training for a competition, I've got to do those extra rolls because you just got to if you're going to compete. Yes. And those are the ones that's like, oh fuck, I'm up at 6 a.m. and we've just had our second baby, so we're on like no sleep. And it's like, my life's shit. I hate everything. But then once that rolling's done, man, like I don't care what's facing me the rest of that day. I am cool, man. I'm chilled. I've got it all in my system. Do you know what I mean? Those are the best ones.
Well, the thing is, it's Zen. Literally, it's that that one of the biggest issues that we have right now. I know we'll talk about it later. With the causing mayhem on social media, is because we have this. It's strangest time because it's a really mad dichotomy that we've got. We can be totally intimate, like me and you can be talking now. And we can talk some seriously heavy, as young guys call it, sesh talk now. So we can talk seriously heavy duty philosophical arguments, philosophical, theories. And then we'll never meet in the real world, which means that is great when you're meeting somebody and you've got, the emotional maturity to understand that mechanism. But the problem is, what that really is bad about is, there's no ramifications if I say something that pisses you off, because you'll be able to turn around and go, right, well, I'll never see this guy, so I'll just say this. And then I'll go, well, I'm never going to see you either, so I'll say this. And the next thing you know, me and you will be arguing about gender identity. And then, like, in the real world, we'd look at each other and go, that doesn't even affect either of us. Why the fuck are we arguing? It's like, at the moment, I'm causing mayhem over Brexit. And I have no dog in the fight either way. Me personally,
same. I'm not fussed.
Me personally, I thought it'd be a better idea to remain until the only reason was because I didn't have enough information about it at the time. So it was a very simplistic vote for a very complex problem. And the only thing that really worried me, which was, this is where you alienate half of the guys listening immediately.
Get ready, here it comes.
Get ready, guys. Let's put it this way. First of all, if you voted to leave the EU because some Polish guy has come over and taken your job, right? First of all, what you have to remember is don't be pissed off at the guy whose English is a second language and has come to a country who doesn't know anybody and for some unknown reason is actually more qualified and a better fit for the job than you are. Because guess what? That isn't his fault. It's probably your fault for not upping your game.
Yep.
So that's the first thing, right? And the second thing that I didn't like was, now this is the one that gets a lot of people because I go, I'm not saying that you were racist to vote leave, but all I know is every racist person I know voted to leave. So that was the crazy thing. But when I'm like going back to the whole interaction thing, I can cause absolute mayhem, and I'm just sitting there laughing my ass off. It's like rage somebody to the point that he's like punching a hole in like one of his doors, and he's going, "I've just punched a hole in my door," and I'm like, "Yeah, great. You have to replace that door too. I'm really angry." and you're like going, "Oh, brilliant!" But you're never going to see me. But you see, the problem is that doesn't allow you to be accountable for your actions. Mm-hmm. And then that stretches now into the real world now where, especially with martial arts, when I first got into it, it was all about being able to defend yourself in an altercation against somebody who wanted to do harm to you. Mm-hmm. Or you were competing against somebody of an equal skill level in a well-lit, padded area with a referee, which meant that you still weren't going to be held accountable for your actions, right? Mm-hmm. So the first one was a very serious matter, right? In the early 80s and mid-80s in Coventry, it was like the most violent city in Europe at the time, so per capita, right? So, you got into a fight, it was dangerous. But nowadays, like, we got the knife crime and we have everything like that. But the average guy in the street who doesn't live in that world doesn't really get attacked anymore. So when you get into a fight with some guy, it's not going to be a straightener in the car park at 6:30 in the morning. It's going to be you hit that guy and he's going to get injury lawyers for you and you lose half of your house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So, the martial arts has changed in that regard, and it as I said, we're in a really strange time because people don't understand. We're very primal animals living in the digital age, and our little brains aren't able to work out this whole thing because we're very social, but at the same time, nearly everybody I've met, they've got more than a tinge of misanthropy about them, So because we're selfish as well, So we're again, it always goes back to, for me at the moment, it always goes back to jiu-jitsu because it's the only thing that I found where you can legally get somebody and fuck them up to the point that they'd be like, in the real world now, I'd be suing you, and I'm like, yeah, but you signed a waiver when you walked in here.
As soon as you high five and you fist bump, contract signed, isn't it?
And you know what? And literally, that's the one, because the first you'll know, right? Because you've been in the game long enough to know now, right? So John, the first couple of times you do it, you see the new guys do it, and because it's so cool, and it you feel like Bodie and Johnny Utah in like Point Break when you're doing it. Yeah, man, this is cool. And then once you get about a year into it, you just do it, and immediately the only equivalent I can give it to is, especially the guys listening to this who are married, it's that level of resignation where you just go, I do, either on the altar or you tell the wife, when the girlfriend says to you, would you like to get married? You go, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
And it's that moment when the enormity of your situation hits you. And that's why, when I fist bump and high five now, I just look and I'm like, God, this is it's going to be really awful for us.
Yeah.
And at the end, it's going to be great for both of us because it's a shared labour.
Yes.
There's a shared toil there. But during the time, man, it sucks, man. Sucks.
It's what it is, but it's so close to real life, and you're right, man. There's a rewarding finish line as well, man. It's got everything. When you're talking about BJJ, it sounds like, so is BJJ a martial art that's later on in your life then?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say I first started at karate with a guy called Andy Margaret in Coventry, and I trained with him from the age of 17 and a half properly. I got my black belt with him in 4.5 years. Wow. And then I moved to Germany, and I lived in Germany. This was just literally as the wall came down, 8-9 months later. I was over in Germany working as a plasterer over there, and I started in Wing Chun and in Thai boxing, and that was a real eye opener for me because those guys were tough. Like the Wing Chun guys, you get away from the goofy Mandarin suits and everything like that, and like they were all thinking that they were Yip Man. They were all tough dudes. The Thai boxing was ran by a Bosnian dude called Shoko in Baden-Baden, who was an absolute killer, and he wasn't technically the best. He wasn't easily. I know loads of guys, Muay Thai trainers who were much better teachers, and they were much better fighters than him. But he had that mindset that comes from literally being, this was the Bosnian Serb thing was still going on. So like he was a very conflicted, at war with the world guy. But I got on great with him. Me and him got on great. And I even at that period I was really interested in Jeet Kune Do and Kali and stuff. And stuck with the training in Germany, for 5.5 years. Then came back, went back to the karate, but it wasn't really for me. And myself and Al Peaseland have been doing a lot of training together, and Al had done all the animal days, with Jeff Thompson. So, they used to get guys from all around the country coming in to test. And that was back in the days where it was very, very akin to the early UFC, where a good blue belt nowadays would have, a good blue belt would have won the UFC.
You're probably right, mate. Yeah.
It's the truth, because, you look back on it and it's like, guys walking in there with one boxing glove.
Yeah, what the fuck was that all about? Right.
But it was a gong show. But what people don't, especially the younger guys,
it's a circus.
It was a circus, and what people don't realize, especially a lot of the young guys, if they don't look at the history of MMA and ballet judo, they don't realize that as cool as all the Brazilians are, there's always been an agenda because socioeconomically they come from a pretty bad place. You know, the Gracies, the great like Horian Gracie and Hoist Gracie and Hickson Gracie, like all of these guys that, you know, people go, yeah, you know, but it's quite poor where they're from. You're like, yeah, sort of. But their father was like, you know, he was like the Brazilian equivalent of the guy who was getting the Ferrero Rochers in the advert. You know, he was, you know, old Gaston.
The ambassador, right?
Yeah, well, Gaston Gracie was like, he was like something to do with the embassy. And then when Maeda came over, he was like, as a favour to Gaston Gracie, he trained up his two sons. And even in Brazil, that's why you've got the two guys. You've got the two schools. You've got the guys who did the gi in the kimono, who could afford to pay for a gi, and then you have the lucha libre guys who were the badasses, and it would be the equivalent of, you know, if we go to Scotland, equivalent of the Gorbals. Guys from the Gorbals, going up against a couple of guys who were going to school at Gordonstown.
Right.
You know, so,
yeah.
You know, you listen to the accent and you look at them and you go, you guys all sound the same, and you go, no, we're worlds apart, man. We're worlds apart.
Yeah.
But yeah, the early days were crazy, but like the animal days that Jeff Thompson used to do and Alan had, it was literally you tapped out or you got knocked out. And yeah, I was really fortunate that, you know, Al's been my main training partner, you know, for 30 years. But Al was the hammer in that gym at the time. So literally when guys came in, yeah, Jeff was the guy who worked out this whole, you know, let's pressure test these martial arts. And this was way back before there was any cross training. Yeah, Rick Young was the only guy that was in the magazines that people knew about. But even then, it was with Rick. You know, it was a real disservice to Rick by not, you know, and it wasn't done by the magazines. The magazines were like, oh yeah, he's a Jeet Kune Do guy. But they didn't realise that he was just world class, you know, working out with world class judokas, world class boxer, and that's the truth. Yeah, by the way, you know, he fought Ken Buchanan's son. And,
wow, is that right?
I dropped him with a jab.
Oh,
so yeah, Rick was the guy who was making a lot of this. Rick was the guy who was making a lot of this cross training work, and as I said, Al was doing all that. So I got into it. But even then, I was like, you know, as much as I like the pressure testing side of it, I still wanted the, you know, the character development side of it. And I was never a Bruce Lee fan, but I saw Daniel Santo in.
Oh, really? Never. You got to be the first person on the podcast that said that. That's actually quite refreshing.
I'm telling you, this is the one that polarizes people. You thought Brexit was bad. Wait till you hear this, right? I was asked once about Bruce Lee, and they were like, "Yeah, you know, he's this." I was like, "Yeah, he was good, yeah." But at the end of the day, he was a 32-year-old man who made three and a half movies. Yeah, one of them was good. The others were a bit passable. Two series of the Green Hornet. Yeah, and by his own admission, he had maybe 30% of the Wing Chun system, which ironically, by the way, is about what the Japanese say that the Brazilians have of the jiu-jitsu system. Yeah, so which will lead me on to the whole, do you know what? Sometimes the only way that you can actually expand your horizons and your understanding is being limited by the amount of stuff that you've got. So, you know, using restriction as restriction, using restriction as no restriction, you know, one of the tenets of Jeet Kune Do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, when people come on about Bruce, I'm like, yeah, he did all that. So how did he get all that and then be this demigod that you're talking about? I said, unless, of course, he was really lucky to have, you know, a training partner and a co-founder of Jeet Kune Do in Dan Inosanto.
Dan Inosanto's a legend, don't he? You've trained under Dan, right?
Yeah, Guru Dan's the man. But then obviously, you know, if people didn't get that, you know, when you try and give a really balanced, like, counter argument to people, mm-hmm. and then they go, yeah, but even so, you know, it was Bruce Lee. And I'm like, listen, let's put it this way, man. I've done loads of runners from Chinese restaurants, and I've never been scared of a Chinese waiter. And I'll tell you something, going to an Indian restaurant, I've always paid my bill. And I said, you know what? I don't know much about Gatka, but, you know, I actually fought in the Scottish Open. This will be a quick quick aside, right?
Go
I bought the Scottish Open back in the 90s, right? Back in 91, 92. And we went into a Indian restaurant in Glasgow, in the Gallagate. I went in there and walked in there, and there's a guy with a turban on, walked in. We were all on the wrong side of a few beers and competing the next day, by the way.
Nice.
That's how professional we were. And went in, and as soon as walked in, this guy's got the turban on, the whole 9 yards. And you know what it's like. You walk into like any sort of restaurant, you're expecting the comedy voice. You know what I mean? And I walked in, and this guy just turned around, he's got the turban on, and he goes, "Oh, right, lads, heavy, is it?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Where's this come from?" I started talking to the guy, but it was like, what you know, to illustrate the point is, I nowadays look at Bruce Lee and go, yeah, I get it. But at the time, in my naivety, I looked at him and I was like, he's 5'7". He's 5'7". All right, yeah, really good attributes. But you know what? Stick him up against Dolph Lundgren. You know, stick him up against Dolph Lundgren when he was doing Kyokushinkai, and literally all they can do is stand up and trade. How would he go? And this is the problem, because when we look at icons, we start thinking that they're more than human, and it's like the biggest wake-up call you're ever going to get in martial arts is you meet guys who are your heroes, and 9 times out of 10, you know, if you're smart, you just go, yeah, oh God, I didn't realise he was just a man as well. But what happens is they get almost like deified to the point that we're like, yeah, but you know, he's almost like a god. And you're like, no, he isn't. He's just a man like me and you.
So is it fair to say he's not on your, what does the Americans say, like not on your Mount Rushmore?
No, he's not going to be up with Thomas Jefferson. Yeah, he might be. He might. You know,
who's on that? Who's on your Mount Rushmore then? Gene LaBelle? He's got to be there.
On the Rushmore would be pretty easy, to tell you the truth, right? First of all, it'd be Danilo Santo, and that's only because, you know, his skill level as a martial artist is surpassed by one thing, which is his skill level as a human being. Like, he is the coolest man I've literally. He was the first guy I ever met that had an iPod. First man I ever met that had an iPhone. Like, when he had the iPod first, he got it in, and it was the old one with the LCD.
Is that with the wheel and that? Yeah.
Yeah, the big old one.
Yeah,
right? He goes, you know what? And he calls me Mike, right? So he says, you know, Mike? And as I always say, he calls me Mike, right? This guy knew Bruce Lee, right? He knew Bruce Lee, and like, he fought Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he almost gets my name right. For a plastic from Coventry.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Right? Yeah, so, like, and Guru's like this, saying to me, he goes, you know, Mike, we have 500 songs in this. And I was like, what, they're like on a card or something? And he's like, no, they're on a file. And this was like back in the days where if you weren't computer literate, you know, you went...
Oh, it was just mind-blowing. Exactly, man.
You know, exactly. Like, you remember the days like this is... Some of the older guys are going to nod, right? And some of the younger guys are going to shake their head. Years ago, you literally, if you had a computer at home, you played solitaire, or you were a curse of the old buffering curse, and everybody of a certain age knows what that one is all about. They were the only two things you use computers for, right? And Guru was like, no, I do this, and I keep all my notes on a computer, and I'm like, what? Mm-hmm. And it's really mad, because now what I'll do is, on the way back from training, I'll just get my iPhone out and I'll do the old dictaphone, but I'll do the dictaphone with the Siri, so I actually make my notes of what I've done that night.
All right.
Yeah, so I do that just because obviously the old pugilistic dementia makes you forget a lot of stuff. But it just goes to show that was like, you know, nearly 20 years ago. He was doing what we all do now, so he'd be straight in on. So
has he always been like a kind of forward-thinking sort of dude? Then I guess I always hear that he's a nice guy.
Easily the most progressive man. When it came to martial arts, it definitely, because he has given the leg up to people. Like, you know, you speak to Braulio Estima, Braulio always says, he always says, make sure you tell Danny I said hello, and I'm like, yeah, I will do, definitely. And Guru was like, oh, he's such a wonderful man. And I said to Braulio, I said, you know, you've trained with Guru in jiu-jitsu, yeah? And he's like, yeah. He goes, he is legit. And this is Braulio Estima saying this. And Braulio's going, he has a Spider Guard game that is just unreal. His understanding of Spider Guard is unbelievable. And when I said it to Guru was like, oh, I think he was just being nice to me. And it's like, no, but then you hear that, and then you go and speak to a couple of Wing Chun guys, and I think Guru has. There's like a bit of an urban legend that if a plane went down and there's 5 separate people were on it, this is just Wing Chun, by the way. There's 5 separate people, that he would be the inheritor of 5 separate Wing Chun systems. He's the highest graded guy that they have. And then in the Kali, he's just another level again. In the Kali and the Screamer and the Silat and all the Filipino and the Indonesian arts. Again, and then when you'll be speaking to I remember having dinner once in Germany, and I was really fortunate. I was sitting across from him, and he was intrigued because I had a hearing aid, and he wanted to know why I was wearing a hearing aid. And I told him, I just randomly went deaf overnight after getting punched. And he was like, "Oh, right." And he was like, "Does that affect your training?" And I said, it actually affects the way that I teach and the way that I learn now. And he was fascinated by that. And then he was speaking, he heard me speak German. And obviously, 5.5 years there, my German's still pretty good, but at the time I was fluent. And I thought, "Where did you learn that?" And I said, "I was here." And he honestly is one of the only people that you will meet that is, when you're talking to him, he is literally more interested in you than you would ever be. And I remember Bono said years ago, and Bono's full of shit, right? Bono's come out with a couple of good lines. And the first line, the great line that he came out with was when he first met Nelson Mandela. They said, "What did you say to Nelson Mandela?" And he said, "I didn't say anything." He goes, "Because no matter what I would say to Nelson Mandela, wouldn't be anywhere near as profound as what he'd be able to tell me," right? And I was like, that stuck in me. And then when I was speaking to Guru over dinner, I was like, I just want to listen to Guru. And Guru was like, no, I'm way more interested in you. Tell me. And then in the end, he starts telling me about, that he'd been researching shillelagh stick fighting systems from Ireland. And he was saying that the systems that they had were very similar to the African stick fighting and the throwing clubs. And you're like looking at him going, wow. So he'd certainly be on the Rushmore. And then the next guy would be Gishin Funakoshi. So Gishin Funakoshi, just basically because of his, again, he was just like a Japanese Helio Gracie,
Right.
The originator of karate, that goes without saying. Then it would probably be, I would say, Maeda. I wouldn't actually put like Helio Gracie or Carlos Gracie in, just for the simple reason that especially if guys are listening to this and they've never researched this, just research some of the urban myths that, especially Helio Gracie, like when he rescued people from shark once.
I heard about something like that. Was that Helio that said about right? Aye.
Yeah, So the thing is, Helio Gracie's not making my Rushmore for the simple reason that he did the shark thing. He would have got in, right? So Gishin would have got in there. So I'd probably put Maeda in there as well. And then obviously the last guy that we put in. Right. Now this.
No, come on. It's got to be Judo Jean LaBelle. He's always the guy I start with.
You see, this is the thing, right? So I would put Judo Jean LaBelle in, but he would be the first guy to say, no. Well, guess what? Take my face off and put General Zod. From like Superman 2.
Right.
You know when they went in and they redid Rushmore to make Zod get on it.
Yeah.
Jean LaBelle is easily the coolest guy. Like he's the original MMA guy, right? He's the original.
Yeah, that's why he's the like people try and go, what's the first MMA fight? The first thing was judo. Like was Jean LaBelle going in there and strangling boxers and shit, wasn't it? Like that's that for me. That's the timeline. That should be the zero for MMA. It's Jean LaBelle.
Well, you see, this is a lot of people don't. We talked earlier about the indigenous arts. MMA now is the American martial art. And it's. And it is. You got to give them their due. They've marketed it really well. Where it showed the narrow, the very short term view that the Brazilians looked at it, because Yeah, well, and by the way, I'm aiming this directly at, like, say, Horry and Gracie, because Horry and Gracie and Art Davey went in there thinking, right, this is an infomercial for Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and at the time, they'd done all the right stuff. You know, they did the Playboy challenge where they were like, they put it in Playboy magazine that they would fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. And I remember when I read that in the 80s. And I was like, Gracie, that's a girl's name, man. And like, literally, I was like, no wonder they had to learn how to fight. You know what I mean? And then I realized how devastating they were. And then they brought they brought the different styles into it. It was a style versus style. So it was never sport. And I remember the early days where they were struggling and John McCain wouldn't, they sold it by that stage to Zuffa.
The cockfighting thing, yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't get anywhere. And I remember Eric Paulson telling me, when UFC 1 first came out, I don't know if you know this, right? But Eric Paulson was training with Hoist at the time.
Yeah, no, I had Eric Paulson on the show last year, man. Yeah, he was telling me he was scheduled to fight. Well, I thought it was the second one. Was it the very first one? Is that right?
But he was in the frame, because when I did my podcast with Eric, it was the same thing. And I said to Eric, so what was going on at the time? And he said, yeah, we were going to go in. Like, obviously, again, this is all public record now. Like, Horry and Gracie, they'd approached Hickson, which would have just been an absolute bloodbath, because Hickson was killing everybody at that time, you know.
Yeah.
And they then went to Hoist, and then obviously this is a skinny kid, and it served the narrative very well. You know what I mean? But yeah, I really don't think that the UFC would have become the folklorish thing in the early days that it would have done.
Absolutely, you couldn't have scripted a better winner, like, based on look and what is this new style. And yeah, you're right, man. It was, if you were going to, the odds would be amazing. But if this was going to pay off, this guy who's going to be a champion and how he's doing it, yeah, it was revolutionary stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, they did well, but it was like, I remember Eric said to me, he goes, yeah. So he goes, I was in the frame. He goes, John McCarthy was there. I think John was a blue belt at the time. So,
wow.
But he was still with the LAPD. So John was there as well. And John was like, yeah, I'll get into this as well. And then Eric said he approached Hoist. And I don't remember the whole details correctly, but it was along the way, because he said, oh, no, if you wouldn't mind, Eric, do you fancy, training up this guy? And he said, what's his name? And he goes, it's Ken Wayne Shamrock.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, it took a minute for me to register, and I went, Ken Shamrock? And he went, yeah. And I went, man, I didn't think that Ken Shamrock could get more hillbilly. But then when you put the middle name Wayne into it, I was expecting him to come out to a Johnny Cash track,
right? Yeah. Uh-huh.
But it was like Eric said. He goes, yeah, because it would have been too much of a close run thing. And then obviously now, if you look at the way that the Americans have done it, they have successfully mixed it now to the point that it's gone from being the redneck hillbilly tap out t-shirt wearing thing to it literally is. It's a recognized and legitimate sport. My only criticism is of it, the same way that back in the early days of playing ice hockey, that goalies, like, I don't know if you know this, it's a statistic, right? They played ice hockey. In ice hockey, I think it was 70 years after they brought in a mandatory, everybody had to wear a steel cup on their groin, that they actually started wearing goalies wear masks, right? So you'll see where I'm going with this, right? Yeah. So what it is, the same way that any sort of sport in its embryonic days doesn't realise the safety aspect is so important. So, like, you've got the NFL, you've got the NHL, right? Even in England, where we look at some of the old footballers who are heading the
bladder balls, aye.
Exactly, right? They're all now suffering with CTE. Mm-hmm. I really think, and I hope to God it doesn't happen, but I know that, there's some serious, like, recent issues, like with Tony Ferguson, and trust me, I've had anxiety and I've suffered with depression, and it isn't fun. But the minute that any of that can get linked, any of that CTE can get linked in with injuries sustained from training, I think MMA is going to have pardon the pun, it's going to have a serious fight on its hands to stay legitimate.
Yeah.
And the problem is, we've still got enough goombas in the combat sport game to have unlicensed boxing matches. You know, some of the white collar organisations aren't the smartest when it comes to doing their matchups as well. So that's going to ruin MMA. But the thing is with MMA is a sport and we're martial artists. So like the thing is, we can talk about this because we don't really have a dog in the fight, because anyone that we know that does MMA, you look at them and you go, yeah, but you're not going to do that when you're 70.
No, of course not. No.
Yeah, I want to be buried in a gi. That's my ambition. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah, and I want to be buried in the gi that I was wearing that morning when I've killed over in '96. So my Rushmore, I tell you what, my Rushmore would be Gene LaBelle, and literally just for the fact that he's just he is who he is, and to tell you nothing but the truth, there would be nobody else. The only other person I would put in just from a martial arts aspect would be Lapu Lapu. You ever heard of this guy?
No, tell me, please. Clean up.
You'll like this, right? So Lapu Lapu was he was a Filipino chieftain, right? And so Ferdinand Magellan, right? So one thing you know about the Philippines is the Philippines it's got a name in that's been lost now in history. Yeah, like nearly every country in the world. You know, I remember when your home country was called Ecos. You know what I mean? But it's been lost. But what it has been is, because it's a collection of like 700 islands, they've always been at war with each other. Right. The Filipinos have always been mad, and they're called the Philippines because they were conquered
by Spain.
Yeah, by Spain. Yeah. King Philip of Spain. And what everyone knows who Marco Polo is, and everyone knows who Columbus is. And, you know, a couple of historians will know who Magellan is, right? But Magellan made those guys look like amateurs. So he had gone around the world and he had kicked ass savagely, right? And he'd gone and like he just cut a swathe. Let's put it this way, mate. I'll tell you right now, John. If you look at the history of the Belgian Congo, right? Mm-hmm. That was like a tea party, you know what I mean, compared to what...
When was Magellan's time? What kind of timeline are we talking here?
Oh, Jesus. Now you put me on the spot.
Well, he must have been post-Columbus then, if it's Philippines, I guess. So we're talking like gunpowder and stuff's being invented.
Well, this is the thing, right? So Magellan's there, and he's got he's got superior technology. And what he was really, really smart at was he would go in and he would colonize, but he would still do the same thing. You know, Guru Dan tells this story way better than me, where there'd be a Spanish galleon, and what you'd have is on the Spanish galleon, you would have, primarily Filipino soldiers. Right. You'd have one guy who'd be running the show, and he'd be a Filipino as well, or he might be a mixed Filipino. So he might be half Spanish and half Filipino. You know, this was after they'd been colonized. And he'd be given a gun, but he'd only ever be given one bullet because he wasn't trusted enough.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it. That would be the deal, right?
Holy shit.
Yeah, that was how that was. Yeah. So this is why I love the Filipino arts, because it's like, right, we're going to take away your weapons from you. We're not going to let you train. And in the same way that capoeira had to be practiced and hidden in this way of dance. Like, what the Filipinos they were like, right, what have we got? We've got rattan sticks. And like the way that the Filipinos look at it is they go, I've got that rattan stick, but I know how to use this. So see that assault rifle you've got? If I can get close enough to you to be able to swing a stick at you, guess what? You'll have a bruise on your head and I'll have a stick and an assault rifle. That's how their mentality works. And the Philippines are famous for being the only country to ever repel. They repelled every foreign invader. Like, it took the Americans, I think it was 103 years, and it was more of a military action. They never called it a war. It was a military action, but they managed to get rid of those guys as well. But yeah, Magellan literally went around the Philippines. He went around the Philippines and he kept going. And he was going, right, well, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to pay a tithe and a tax anyway. So you might as well just pay it to Spain. We'll look after you. And guess what? You'll still be in charge, because everyone's got to answer to somebody, right? And like, obviously, he's going to all these different chieftains and that, and they're all like, yeah, no problem. But I think you should go and see Lapu Lapu. And he's the man. And so obviously he's trying to feather his nest and get all these different guys on side. And then he goes to Lapu. And Lapu's famous for one thing. He's famous for being the guy who chopped off Ferdinand Magellan's head before he even managed to get his feet on dry land in the Philippines. So if you want to talk about being a badass, you know, this is a guy who went all around the world and he was such a badass. Turns up and he is armed to the teeth. Mm-hmm. And this guy turns out and he's got a machete and the first thing he does is takes his head off. And like that'll give you that, like, again, that's the mindset. So I would stick Lapu in. He would be an honourable mention next to Judo Gene LaBelle.
What a story, man! That's cracking.
But again, all characters. You know, this is, just when you hit every single one of those guys that we mentioned, like they're all inspirational characters and they're amazing. But they're all look at them and you just go, they're just us. You know, if I just applied myself a little bit more, you know, it's that whole. Everyone's got an Oscar-winning performance in them. Mm-hmm. Everybody has got a Pan Am-winning performance in them, as long as you're prepared to do the shit that it takes to get you to the Pan Ams.
Absolutely, man. It's all in us for sure. 100%. I agree. It doesn't have to all be Oscar-winning, but it can be you're winning, you're achieving goals or whatever. You're rewarding yourself with whatever you've got going on, your success. And like it doesn't have to be like, oh man, I won $1 million or whatever. It doesn't, like, it can be anything.
Success and happiness is all subjective anyway. You know, so it's all down to your perspective on what that is. It's like, you know, well, you just mentioned the Oscar-winning performance. When I teach seminars, I always go, listen, you know, this is the problem. Every single person, every one of us, we want to be Marlon Brando. Or we want to be a generation defining person at what we do, right? And then some of us got to realise that, you know, we're just Ken Barlow, and you get a bit of a giggle out of it, and they go, yeah, but it's Ken Barlow, and you're like, yeah, maybe it's Ken Barlow, but guess what? Look, you know, he's raised 2 families. That guy's been in work consistently, and you know what? That comes on the TV, you'll still watch him, right? And they're like, oh, wow. And I'm like, yeah, you got to remember there's a sliding scale. I remember for a long time in martial arts, there was a lot of this positive thinking stuff going on. And a lot of good friends of mine were all into it. And they're using it as like they were using it as a vehicle for personal development, which I get. Mm-hmm. But they were like, they didn't realize that the ability to throw a good front kick or the ability to do a good spinning armbar wouldn't necessarily translate to being really good at business and vice versa. Yes. But they looked at it in a very simplistic terms, said, but if you can do that, why can't you do that? And I was like, no, what you got to do is you got to look at martial arts and go, guess what? I'm really good at a front kick, but my side kick sucks. What I need to do is I need to make sure that for the rest of my life, I'm never in a position that I have to depend. My life will depend on me throwing a fucking sidekick. It's pretty simple, you know.
But the basic ideas are right, though. You're right what you're saying about that. Like, that's a good framework to have if you're hardworking, or the philosophies that apply in martial arts. Because I do that myself. Then I can apply. Like whatever your job is, man, whatever struggles or life's going to throw at you, you can use martial arts as a vehicle to like help overcome that. But you're right, it doesn't directly plug in. It's up to us, the individual, to make things fit in it.
You're so true. It's like the one thing that we touched on it earlier. The one thing, I threw out a couple of names for there. The one thing that I have found, especially with the jiu-jitsu community, is you'll find this, and it never ceases to amaze me that I get friends of mine who are nice people. They wouldn't be intellectual heavyweights in any way, shape or form, and that's not being judgmental. It's just that it's not what they're interested in. And then they get into jiu-jitsu, and then what they do is they actually become addicted to, or that at the very least they enjoy the process of learning. And when you fall in love with learning, it literally is more addictive than crack, because the next thing you know, you're chatting to them, and then they'll go, have you listened to any of Joe Rogan? And you're like, yeah, he's a bit bro science, but yeah, I do like him. the one thing with Joe Rogan, I've loved Joe Rogan from way back in the day when he used to be like doing Fear Factor, and when he was just a comedian, and he was doing the early UFCs and stuff, and I really liked him. My only criticism with Joe Rogan is he talks about stand-up comedy like he's fucking Marie Curie, so he's like, oh man, and you're like, look, it's not really, it's not really life or death, man. Don't get me wrong. I've done some stand up, and it's tough, and it's nerve wracking. But the one thing that I have found is because I'm like quite a sociopathic individual, I don't really care about how people actually think about me.
Yeah, you've probably got to have that attitude, right? You can't not. You can't be vain. You can't be vain if you're doing stand up.
No. But you see, with Rogan, what Rogan will do is Rogan will get you in, and then he'll get like Gard Sard, or he'll get Jordan Peterson, or he'll get Ben Shapiro in, and you'll look at it and you go, right, okay, my dear friend Nathan Everton, we always talk about this all the time, because as me and Nathan say, if we ever just sat and talked about the stuff that we are so both like that we have diametrically opposing views on, I don't think we'd ever talk to each other again. But what we do is we understand that there's a lot of areas that we actually really agree on. So we talk about that, and then every now and again we'll touch on something, and he'll go, I don't think we shouldn't go down that route, Mick. And they go, exactly. And it literally, again, it's like analogous for like you rolling in jiu-jitsu. It's like, if you want to, you can put your arm in between somebody's legs, see how that will work. And if you're smart enough and you can bait to go for a slap, that's a great. And it's the same way with conversation, but then that's the same way with life. And that is the constant reminder that I keep getting now, especially from Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And bear in mind that jiu-jitsu is what I'm training 70% of the time in. But guess what? Jiu-jitsu is probably 10% of what I actually teach.
Yeah, man, it's a beautiful thing as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for sure, man. I'm so glad that I found it. Started Taekwondo when I was 10, but Jiu-Jitsu was like when I was like 30. I mean, it's so long until.
Yeah, you see, as I said, it underpins everything that you got. This is the one thing, right? I know you're supposed to be asking the questions, but I'd like to ask you this one, right? So when you went into Taekwondo, and it was the answer to everything, right? So it had everything that you needed at that time, because it is the truth. When you go into a martial art, it becomes like the Swiss Army knife for you. So it's got everything that you need. Mm-hmm. And then when you got into jiu-jitsu, did you do the old Greek tragedy of having to kill your father? Have you ever noticed that when people leave one martial art to go to another, they immediately have to you can't just turn around and say it wasn't for me. You have to discredit it and then you have to kill it. And it's like Greek philosophy. It's like, right, yeah, you know what? Yeah, if I believe, if I'm going to go down the Plato route, then there's no way that I can go down the Socratic route as well. Mm. And then after a while, you just go, do you know what? It's just different flavors.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I did. I didn't look at it like I had to kill one off to go and attempt another. I just looked at it, Mick, like I was stepping into another universe. Like, fish out of water is so cliche, but something like that. I was like, oh, right, okay, these people are still people, but I am not of this world, and I better learn this quick or I'm going to get strangled.
Yeah, but it literally is like the Matrix. It's the red pill, and it really is funny because. Yeah, I went back and looked at that again, and it's a bit of a funny thing because at the time it was totally and utterly groundbreaking, and the bullet time whole process that they were doing, the filming and everything was amazing. And now you look at it, and it's almost hackneyed and cliched when you look at the Matrix. And then obviously the problem is, you look at the Matrix. It's like looking at the original Highlander movie. You can't judge Matrix on that movie. What you do is it's like when you look at Highlander now, you can't look at that and not remember the planet Zeist in like Highlander 2. So what happens is because something comes along, something that originally comes along and it's mind blowing, and then people go, right, I'm going to try and catch that lightning in a bottle again, and then it becomes shit, and then obviously it devalues what your original thing was, right? And what I'm saying with it is, with the Matrix especially, you have that red pill moment, like that classic iconic scene where, you know, they're sitting down in that post-apocalyptic thing, looking at the thing. And then he goes, you know, and then that Cypher goes, you go back, I bet you're thinking to yourself, God, I wish I took the blue pill. And you know, jiu-jitsu, my BJJ professor, Neil Simpkin, always says the same thing. There's only two types of people in the world that do jiu-jitsu. You go in there, you get like the worst wake-up call in the world, and you go back and you pretend it never existed. And he goes, and some people can live with that. That's great. He goes, but then there's other people that go in, and again, I think it was Joe Rogan who said it. He said that the first time he ever rolled with anyone who knew what they were doing on the floor, there was that realization halfway through where it's like, this guy could actually rape me.
Whoa.
And you go, wow.
I want to say deep, but that's the wrong choice of words.
That's deep, right? And then he added a few years later, he turned around and he goes, then you go and train with someone who's really good, but you've been training a little bit longer. So, you know, initially, like it'd be the same thing as getting attacked, right? The first time you get attacked, it's that initial shock. And then you just think to yourself, well, you know what? I wasn't prepared for it. You know, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I'm going to, you know, bulletproof myself and I'll never do it again. And then what you get with jiu-jitsu is, because it's quite a masochistic thing, it's one of the only things I've found in life where you have to be both masochistic and sadistic in it. You know, and there's moments where you're passing somebody's guard and you're just at that point where you're like, the maniac is there. You know, you're really there, and then you have to rein it in and go, no. And, you know, it's the old Roger Gracie thing where it's like, you know, you have to fire in the belly and ice in the brain, right? And that's hard to have. But Joe Rogan said, he goes, you get to do the training, you get to this position where you're like, yeah, now I know what I'm doing. He goes, and then you find out that you go up against someone who's really good, and you're like, he could rape me, and guess what? He can actually make me fit. He can make me pretend now that I'm enjoying it. And you're like, God Almighty! Now that's a wake up call. You know, to reframe the thought to the point that it's like, I'm at a point now where it's beyond being scary. It's a point now where this guy can emotionally break me. And I don't know if you've seen that in training. You know, when you see guys walking out of the gym, and you know, when you see the guy with his head down, I always do the same thing. If I ever see anyone with their head down walking out of the gym, I just quickly grab them and say, bro, you okay? Is everything all right? Because 9 times out of 10, it isn't what's going on the mat. It's going on in life. But the problem is, what's going on in life has an awful way, unless you keep the barriers up, of coming in. And then the next thing you know, tapping out to a white belt, 3-stripe white belt, who's Kimura, and, you know, then becomes like a major issue, you know. So that's the one thing that I don't know what you think, but I'm always very mindful that I don't ever want to see broken people walk away from the mat.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, man. I guess it's like, well, I'm broken just now, right on the mats. I had my first big proper injury in September, my meniscus. I'd never done any knee injuries before.
Ouch.
And it was like, yeah, don't train for the rest of the year. And I kind of did some technique, I'm not going to lie, but like wasn't sparring or anything. And I go back to training started this year. And my main problem just now is just my gas tank. Because like you were saying at the top of the show, man, take 2 weeks off. Like 2 weeks off. 2 weeks off can be a lifetime, man. If you're training for jiu-jitsu for like a decent amount of time, like that feels like forever, and everything's just regressed, and then trying to get your fitness back. So I'm in that kind of spot just now. Like, I don't mind if I'm leaving broken, because then I know I got a good roll on. Do you know what I mean? I need it. I need this torture just now.
The physically broken thing, but when you say
but mentally broken, yeah, that's different.
the mentally and the emotionally broken bit. It's funny you really said something there, because I've used this line a few times. The one reason why jiu-jitsu is so addictive is because the improvement curve is like it's like exponential growth. It's so quick, and the minute that you're able to make the connection that, right, once I'm in this position, and it is, Bruce Lee was way ahead of his time when it came to reference point training. And John Kavanagh is a big fan of it as well, because I've listened to a few of his things when he's talking about it, where it's like, right, I don't know how to get from, because it's always the same thing. You meet the first guy that you ever train with, and what they do, you always say, listen, right, just because you've grabbed my limb and gone 60 mile an hour in a fucking other direction doesn't mean it's going to work, mate. You know, and you've already shown me what your intention is. So it's like the guy, like he's hanging off your neck or he's trying to can open you or something, and you're like, listen, mate, you know, you got to start. You're so far away from where you need to be. You need to do this. Like when I'm teaching kids, especially if I'm doing positional play, I always say to them, and it's dated now. I always say it's like Crash Bandicoot, and they're like, "What do you mean?" I went, "You know, there's a checkpoint in the game," and they went, "Buddha Buddha," and then, you know, every time you know, every
Love
time
that
you hit
game,
that
man.
checkpoint, yeah, you hit that checkpoint, go Buddha Buddha, and that's what I do when I'm training with these guys. I said, "Right now, do you know what the score is now?" It means that even if I get lost now, I know this is where the game will restart for me. And they're like, oh, wow. And once you realize where you can go off on these checkpoints, then you've got it. And you look at it and you go, wow, jiu-jitsu is amazing. And initially you do think you're a genius because you're discovering it. You're not being taught this.
Yeah.
And because it's self-discovery, you know, our ego doesn't allow us to understand that there's possibly a lot of other people who have discovered that exact same thing. It's like that crazy.
It's like you've been let into the club now, isn't it? It's like everyone knew this before you, and then, oh yeah, I've got it now. And you walk in, you're like, hey, you're here at the party. Yeah,
exactly.
Now you're clued up.
And there's this. I can't remember. There is a term for it where it's like a universe. There's this. It basically it's stuff like understanding crop rotation or agriculture. Or astronomy was a big one, like back in the day, right? Where there was certain parts of the world where they all made the same huge paradigm shifts in understanding, roughly within like 50 years of each other. And I can't remember. It wasn't an Andrew Marr book. I can't remember what book it was I read. But literally, it was all about there's universal truths that basically translate into every language. You know, there's just stuff. Yeah, if you just think like the laws of physics type thing, and that's where you have it with jiu-jitsu, where it's like, you know, every now and again we'll see some new stuff, and you'll see Keenan Cornelius will do some worm guard, and then you look at it and you go, wow, that's amazing. And then you just think, yeah, but somebody else would have just discovered that. You know, it goes back to the Magellan thing. It's like, okay, he was smart because he discovered it, but anybody else who would have had a boat and the money from King Philip of Spain would have discovered it too. Yeah,
someone was coming at some point, I guess, right? That sounds bad. But...
Exactly. So as we've said before, because I'm very mindful that it's just talking about jiu-jitsu, but because we're doing a lot of it, it's a big thing to do. But it gives you the wake-up call on everything. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, man. Mick, let's get to fan questions because we're a wee bit short on time, man. I usually do an hour and we're way past that just now, but let's do it, man. Let's do it. I've got some from Twitter, some from Facebook, so I'll just shout them out and then let's see your thoughts.
I'll tell you what, you for Max, do you know what we have done? We're just going to have to repay the favour. So this is the score guys listening in. We will do this, and then the second half, me and you will do, and we'll do it on mixed martial arts. And that way, I'll turn the tables on you a little bit. And we can still do this crazy ass, sounding like Joe Rogan, Eddie Bravo, without smoking all the weed, like existentialist shit.
Speak for yourself.
Go for it. Let's go.
Okay, on Twitter, let's do it, man. First one at Else for Elf. I've seen this one before. Could Bruce Lee's 1-inch punch kill a guy?
Yeah, could it kill a guy? If there was a knife on the end of it, I suppose. Yeah.
You don't buy it now. I've just seen the video.
No. Do you know what? I still teach it. I still teach it on seminars. It's physics. Like the thing is, as I've said before, right, that my problem is for all of my braggadocious nature and like a lot of BS that I come out with, my underlying message has always been truth. Like, to thine own self be true. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the Chinese convinced us it was chi. The Japanese convinced us it was, it was ki. The Jedi's convinced us that it was midichlorians. Guess what it is? It's just physics. What you've got is Bruce Lee understanding that force, mass, acceleration, and gravity work. So literally, when he was doing the 1-inch punch, basically what he was doing was everything was going down into a concentrated position into somebody's solar plexus. What it did, the whole killing thing, I don't really get. The lessons from that, unbelievable. What you're understanding is that instead of treating everything in life like a marathon, sometimes it is literally a sprint. And, the best example I can give right now is if you had the choice between buying a Volvo and a Tesla, you buy a Tesla. And it'd be like, why would you do it? Because you can do 0 to 60 in 2.3 seconds. And you're like, but when will I ever need that? You go, I'll never need that. And it's the same as the 1-inch punch. What the 1-inch punch will teach me is that I'm able to generate some seriously good power right when I need it, as long as all the stars are in alignment. So, it won't kill anybody, but do you know what? It was groundbreaking in its day. The one thing, if you don't mind me saying, one thing that, whenever, even though I said I wasn't a Bruce Lee fan, when you start judging Bruce Lee, you got to remember when he did the 1-inch punch at the Long Beach thing, right? That was 1966.
Is that the video? It always goes around. I've just seen that video. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was the one. But what he was teaching was an understanding of force generation, which it still works. And I'll tell you right now, I've actually used that. Those principles. I've used those principles in reality when I've just put my hand on somebody's shoulder and been able to drop an elbow, just a sharp cutting elbow across the head. And they didn't even see it coming. But what you had to remember is they didn't know they were going to get hit. I knew I was going to hit them. They were drunk. I was sober. I was getting paid to do it. They weren't. And literally, it was a case of, this is a guy that I know I couldn't beat. I could not beat this guy if we did the old John Wayne, quiet man, put the jukes up thing. So literally, I put my hand on his shoulder and said, listen, man, can we talk? And literally, once I put my hand on his shoulder, I know I was enraged to drop a snap elbow on him and put it down, and everyone was like, "Wow, that was amazing." And I went, "It wasn't really. It was a fucking cheap shot." But what it was enough to scare the guy, for the guy then to spend a couple of years being wary of me, and then end up becoming my friend. Yeah. So it was a win-win situation. So you don't kill a guy, but do you know what it will do? It'll help you get a friend every now and again.
There you go. So there you go, mate. Just start elbowing people in the head, and you get a friend for life. Yeah. Let's see. At Alan Payne, I follow you on Twitter. Seems like you're quite a fan of feminism, right?
Yeah, we actually did mention this.
This is hilarious, man.
Before the show, right? Fan of feminism. I'll tell you right now. One of my biggest...
Well, I guess, I don't know, I don't want to speak for a guy, but we're talking about feminism. Feminism from when it was the 60s to feminism now are two completely different things for what matters.
Third wave, but this third and fourth wave feminism...
it's not the same thing.
Load of nonsense. What it is, like, from my personal perspective, I'll tell you right now, one of my major teachers in Kali and JKD is a woman called Guru Diana Rathborn, who is a wonderful human being. She looks like a hockey mom, and she's like, literally, when you see her, you think that she was either going to go to bingo, she was going to go to bingo, or she was going to go and buy groceries for her kids, right? Mm-hmm. And literally, she teaches law enforcement, she teaches the military. She's unbelievably good at martial arts, and just happens to be a woman. Like one of my favourite teachers in BJJ is Neil Simpkin's daughter, Charlie Simpkin, who famously, I gave her a first ever seminar when she was 15, and we had 78 people on the mat. And it was funny because a couple of guys were like, who's the young girl? What's she doing? She's doing the warm up. And then I got her to do the first hour and a half. And at the end of that hour and a half, the guys were like, is it okay if the young girl just stays home and teaches? She's way better than you. And she was mugging me off and making a few jokes. So I don't judge people by their gender, by their sexual orientation, certainly not by their age, because some of my really young friends are just better at martial arts than me, and they teach me stuff. What I don't like is I don't like hiding behind any banners. And what you've got is we're so, I know we've come out with a load of pop culture references all night, but it literally is. I look at society the way it is right now, and I'm expecting Liam Neeson. I could have come out with there because Liam Neeson's got himself into a lot of trouble recently. He's got a particular set of skills, and then he's got a particular set of tweets that he wishes he should have got rid of, right? But where he plays Ra's al Ghul in Batman, And he turns around. He goes, when a society gets
still with a kind of Irish accent as well. I've noticed in every movie, little twinge in there. Ra's al Ghul.
Do you know what I did like? To go a little bit off kilter on this, I really liked the way that when Tom Hardy was playing Bane, he still had that same timbre in his voice. You merely adopted the dog. Yeah. That and he just sounded like Ra's al Ghul. It was like we learn how to kill people, but David Niven's going to teach us how to fucking talk at the same time. So it was. I tell you what it is we're in a position in society right now where we are that indulged that we are now finding shit that means nothing to be pissed off about. So, especially on Twitter, when you were talking about the feminism thing, I've said this before. Go on Twitter. I swear to God, I have more blocks than fucking Minecraft on Twitter. That's how many people have blocked me. It's like a Tetris game on my thing now, right?
Jeez.
Because the minute you do anything, if you put up a counter argument to anybody, they immediately block you, which is always amazing. It always amuses me because, and astounds me because the people that block you are always self-avowed liberals. But bear in mind, I'm a classical liberal. But these are like these new wave liberals, right? Mm-hmm. And what they'll do is they go, "Yeah, I believe in freedom of speech," and then you look at it and go, "Oh, I don't know." It basically tofu for you,
Yeah.
Tofu for you. 256 has blocked you, Mick.
Yeah. Wow.
You like freedom of speech, so the feminism one's the one that gets me because most strong women I know are turning around and they go, "Fucking feminism, why do I need it?" I've got friends of mine who I've got one friend at the moment. We've been friends for years, but she turned around and she's single at the moment because her husband was giving her a hard time about going to get a job. Went and got a job, and then he was like, "No, do you know what? It's all about equality, and you need to make as much money as me." And she was like, "Yeah." And then when she made as much money as him, she looked at him and she said to him, "Look, dude, all you do is make me feel bad. You drag me down. I don't need you." And that was when she said, people go on about feminism and equality. You got to be careful what you ask for because guess what? I've woke up now, and I'm like, right, okay. And it's bizarre because the only people that I see arguing for feminism, and now this will make me sound really bad, right? But it's the truth, are these awful beta males with an agenda who, they're like. I didn't realise that all these terms like gaslighting and gatekeeping and all this.
I don't even know. I've heard them, but I don't even know what they mean.
Yeah, I don't understand them. But literally, it's word soup when I listen to it, mm-hmm. Right? But you see these guys, and they call it white knighting when they come in and they go, "Yeah, do you know what? I believe in feminism." And then and then someone will say to me, "What do you think of feminism?" And I went, "I actually think that being a warrior isn't fucking gender specific. And what you got to remember is." I believe that getting up and doing 45 hours a week, doing a job that you actually hate because you've got people dependent on you, or you say you're single, you're doing a job 45 hours a week so that you can actually truly live for 6 hours a week on the mat or 8 hours on the week on the mat or, whatever the time constraints and the money will allow you to do, that you can do that. And then everyone's like, "Yeah, but you should be able to live all the time." And you go, "Yeah, but some people don't even get to live as they are for one day." I just really believe that we're looking for problems that don't exist. I'll tell you right now, if you want to talk about, fighting for feminist rights, go over to Saudi Arabia right now. I'll tell you what, go and find those girls that Boko Haram took. Go and find these people who are, and that's just not a slight on just one religion, by the way, because the Western world, we've got some serious issues. But guess what? In this country where we are right now, I really don't think that we can jump on that and say that we're having a shit time. Not compared to the people who are actually having a shit time. Because I really believe that you're doing them a disservice. So that's why I have problems with feminists. And not only that, they're dead easy to wind up.
It's pretty easy, man. Yeah, I don't have a dog in the fight on anything. I don't think movements of any description, feminism, doesn't matter what it is, they've not got the answers. And I'm kind of the mindset as well. I've got a family to feed and bills to get paid. So, yeah, there's a lot of people looking for shit to do. And it seems like they're they're all finding each other now online, and then it becomes a movement. I think that's really what's going on.
You totally hit the nail on the head. It's like I have one particular friend of mine who was giving me some hard time because I'd raised some money for a group called Friends of Palestine, right? And literally, it was only because it was for an orphanage there. So there was this orphanage, raised some money, and they started going on about Hamas. And I said, nothing, I don't have a dog in the fight. I was asked to do something, raise some money. This is going to these kids. That's all I know. And that's all I care about. And then what I did was I had these radical characters who were really, really behind the whole Palestinian movement thing. And they were like, yeah, now we've got you on board. And I said, no, I'm not on board. I just saw these kids suffering. That's all I'm doing. I don't want to get involved in the rest of it. And they were like, but it's really, really bad. And I went, but both sides are really, really bad. And then they were really putting it on to me. And bear in mind, one of them, his name is, this is no word of a lie, right? His name is Julian, right?
Okay.
So Julian's there. So first of all, Julian was never going to be an electrician on a building site next to me. So that's one thing, right? So secondly, he's from a pretty privileged position, right? And that, apologies to anyone called Julian who's listening.
Who's an electrician as well, by the way.
Yeah. Exactly. But the situation is, right, is Julian starts putting it on me, and I was like, right, so you're single, Julian? And he went, yeah. I said, you're never going to get married? He went, no. And you're like 38? And he went, yeah. And I said, you own 2 houses? He went, yeah. So yeah, you really believe in this movement, and you're a passionate activist? And he went, yeah. So how come you haven't sold one of your houses, moved over to Palestine, and actually opened up your own orphanage? And he was like, I said, or is it the fact that, you like banging women who wear dungarees and smell of patchouli oil? And he looked at me for a minute, he went, And I said, just be honest about it, mate. Some people go to health clubs to meet women. I said, you obviously go to whatever meeting you've gone to. And he looked at me and he goes, no, I can't believe you said that. And then, it was that realization where it's like, bastard, this guy knows me. And I'm like, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. There's nothing.
Yeah, man. If that's the angle you're working, that's fine. And I've no problem with people going out there and being in groups and involved in whatever. But I do think a lot it's a load of shit.
Yeah. But as I say in Scotland, it is a load of pish. And my whole situation is like this, right? I have three sons, 18, 23, 27. The 2 eldest boys are teachers. Both have both history teachers. Both have their own places. Today, we're talking now on a Sunday night. I taught my class in the morning, and I spent an hour and a half rolling with my boys. My youngest is just getting into jiu-jitsu now, but like all young guys, he looks at stuff, sees it twice, and is able to do it. My eldest son is 27, very good, really, really solid blue belt, feisty, mad for the ruck. And what I know is, I know that if every single person on the planet who was in a position of authority like me as a father was able to just have a balanced relationship with the people that lived in their house and they brought up, we wouldn't have any of these problems. Because everybody wants to change the world, and none of them are able to change their underwear. It's the whole Jordan Peterson thing. Like, you want to change the world, you can't even tidy up your room. Tidy up your room first, and then come and see me. And that's how it works, man. So I'm mindful of the time for you. So next question.
Well, we've got quite a few, but let's just take one more. I'm looking through some of them from Facebook. A lot of them are along those lines, but I was wanting to just change up because Mick McCann was asking what your thoughts. Oh no, sorry, not Mick McCann. What was that girl's name? Susan Rickles. She says, enjoyed your interview with Dan Hardy. That's what it was. I didn't know you'd interviewed Dan.
Great guy.
She was just asking what he was like. Is he a good guy, whatever?
Dan Hardy is. Dan is easily one of the most accomplished true martial artists that I know. I met Dan Hardy. Now this from your neck of the woods. You'll like this. I'm trying to think what year it was. 2000 and. I want to say 2000 and...
Was this for a UFC?
8. No, this was Cage Warriors.
Cage Warriors, right? Yeah.
So this is Cage Warriors, and I'll tell you who was... The headline in the bill was a really good friend of mine, Neil McLeod, who's a JKD guy. He was one of the first guys that used to fight MMA, valet judo back in the day. You know, this was when Cage Warriors was like Cage Warriors 6 or something, right? And Dan Hardy had fought on the bill. Jimmy Wallhead had fought on the bill. I was sitting on a table watching, like a friend of mine who one day will if I can ring him up in prison, I really want to interview him. It was one of the original guys who was behind Cage Warriors, a guy called Andy Linnis, really, really nice guy. And Andy, me and him had our first ever karate lesson together at 16. And then he actually broke my foot. We had a bit of a challenge fight because basically it was two guys. It was like who could beat who, and it was like we were all part of a group of friends. And it was like, so who could beat who? And I said I could, and he said he could. So literally, we got into a ruck, and he just stood on my left foot, and he basically clubbed me over like Chuck Liddell style with this massive overhand right. And as he did it, he stepped sand on my foot, so it snapped my ankle. And we carried on fighting. And then I had to go back and have my ankle fitted anyway. And then obviously he got into MMA promotion. I was still training at the time. And he said to me, he goes, do you want to come to this thing? So it was Neil McLeod, main event, third fight in this. If you guys are listening and you've never seen these fights, they're on YouTube, watch them. It's the best trilogy that we ever had in the UK. Do you remember Paul McVeigh, who used to fight?
Oh, yeah, I know Paul well.
Yeah, no, Paul, right? So Paul fought Neil, right? He was with Dinky Ninjas at the time out of Glasgow.
Yeah.
So he was there. And on that table, there was myself, Ian Freeman.
Yep.
Ian Freeman, Dan Hardy, Paul McVeigh's girlfriend at the time, two mates of mine from Coventry, and there was somebody else. God, I can't remember. He fought on the night. Mark Goddard was refereeing there. It was when it's where if you go on YouTube now, you see the guy who runs in, and he had the old tracksuit bottoms where you pull the tracksuit off. You know where it had the
pop-offs. Loved those, man.
Pop-offs down the side.
Loved the pop-offs.
Yeah. So
my mother always loved the pop-offs for a really sick, weird reason. When I was 12, she was like, do you know, if you were ever in an accident, like a car crash, they could just pop these off and fix your leg dead easy. I was like, why would you even think that? You buy me these and that's your first thought? What a weird thing. Yeah.
It's like the old Billy Connolly joke. It's like, change your underwear. Why? Just in case you're in a car accident.
And
he goes, why? He goes, well, got something to tell you. What is it? Your Sunstead. It gets worse. I was like, his fucking trousers were an awful state. And then obviously it was like Billy Connolly's like, I don't think my mother actually understood that if you were conscious of the fact that you were going to get run over, the trousers would probably be the first thing that would be ruined. You know what I mean? But yeah, going back to Dan, that the first time I ever met him was literally that night, and he was just building up his outlaw persona thing at the time, and he had the Mohican haircut going on. I sat down, we started talking, and he's easily one of the coolest guys ever. But he's also really, he's just a very well-read man. If you haven't read his book, I really recommend getting that, the Part Reptile book. And he's done all of he's done the ayahuasca ceremony a few times, which, if I was younger, I'd probably do, you know what I mean, to tell you the truth, just to expand my consciousness and decalcify the third eye. I know that makes me sound like Eric Paulson, right? But I would do that. But yeah, Dan is he's so good. And his role now as this fight analyst, his colour commentary is amazing. I personally think his commentary, it's between him.
It gets you excited, man. I like it. Yeah, I do like him.
Him and Dominic Cruz, I would say the best two colour commentators. Rogan I like, but his hyperbole is a bit crazy. But I don't know if you saw the fight last week, the Darren Till fight, the big upset, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see Dan Hardy? He's still a fan because there's that scene where he's
jumping up, screaming,
straight out of it. But God Almighty, now that last week was something else. That was I watched the Wonder Boy.
So was the 4-punch combination after the interview? Did you see that with Edwards?
Masvidal, yeah. Well, you see,
both.
The thing is that the whole thing with Leon Roberts is there's a little bit of hype there. That's the one thing that the UFC I really actually I actually did want to just touch on this, if you don't mind, is the UFC has been great because it's not MMA, it's the UFC. I do some work for Bellator, and I think their product's amazing. And some of the guys who fight for them are amazing. They still and I do like that throwback to the Gong Show crazy. Scott Coker calls them the fun fights. Where you got literally the next thing that Scott Coker will have is like a cross-dressing dwarf fighting Zulu Zeno or someone. You know what I mean? Because he gets some really obscure characters, but then you get some great fights in there as well. So that that is good. But when you think about MMA now, it's just synonymous with the UFC, right? And it's like people just go, oh, it's UFC.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in that marketplace and you are the market leader, I think there's a level where you have to go, right, okay, there's a responsibility. The Masvidal thing, I think that was part, as they say in the wrestling game, I think that was part of a work that ended up becoming like a shoot, as they say.
Yeah, because I've had not Leon, but I've had Fabian on the show, Leon's brother, and both Leon and Fabian, they're quite cocky, sort of. I don't want to say mouthy, in a disrespectful way to them, because I don't want to get my ass kicked by them, but they're mouthy because they know how to big up a fight, like you're saying. Whereas Masvidal was just like, "What's that?" and just it ended up.
Do you know what it is? For the young guys who are listening, they're like this. What you've got is. You've got I said those Fabian and his brother Leon, they're training out at Renegade now, so they're with a good group. My really good mate of mine, Tom Coffey's there, who's a beast, by the way. If you ever get the chance to interview Tom, I would do. Yeah, Tom Brees is in there as well. These guys are animals, right? They're really, really good, but because they're young and they're hungry, and because the UFC's created this, they've created this almost acceptable level of trash talking that they go, right, okay, well, that isn't actually that's an option now, how I can sell a fight.
Yeah.
And Conor McGregor, I've been a big fan of his from back in the day when there was that DVD. God, what was it called? God,
a DVD on Conor? I don't know.
There's a DVD, and Conor is one. It's like almost. If you imagine, it's like an anthology of 3 separate guys following their journey in MMA, and it's set in Northern Ireland. I'll tell you what I will do. I'll message you later as soon as I get to Google.
Oh, I think I do know what you're talking about. I don't know. Maybe worth a Google.
Dead spotty, and he's coming out with claims that you just think.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I have seen that, and he's taking on the world, and
it's so delusional. And then I remember being in New York. Let me see. So I remember I was in Henzo. I was at Henzo's in 2009, and when I went in there, GSP was training at the time, and I was like, man, this is so cool, and it was amazing. I was like, yeah, man, this is going to be brilliant. And then I remember going back then 3 years ago. Yeah. It'd be 3 years ago. So so go back there, and I'm walking up Times Square. I was walking up Times Square. There's this billboard, and it literally is Conor McGregor. And I was like, wow, this is Conor McGregor on a billboard in Times Square. It doesn't get any bigger. And 3 years ago, Madison Square Garden, Vince McMahon from the WWE was still putting the kibosh on any MMA being done at the Garden, at Madison Square Garden. And it was at that time, right? And I'm thinking, this is amazing. I go into an Irish bar in New York, and it was that classic where Conor's coming out with the, you're going out making balloon animals for kids and then throwing up Cholo gang signs.
Yeah.
And
so funny.
I'm just thinking, this guy is just so funny. And then Conor goes from that to just literally, I still have my own theory that he saw Mayweather, saw the level that Mayweather brought it to, and he went, right, I can do that. And just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. Because what he did was he went from being just everybody. Yeah, even if he was playing like as I say, and wrestling the heel, you'd still deep down like him. You know what I mean? But then he got to the point where you actually start looking at him, going, "Do you know what, mate? Now you've overstepped the mark." And because they can sell that, and they know that is a commodity that will sell a fight, you've got a lot of young guys coming in and they're talking shit. And first of all, you look at them and you go, but you haven't got anything to back this up. That's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one, more importantly, is what message is that given out to somebody who actually, to young guys who are coming up? Because it is all well and good to be able to talk shit like that and be wearing all the Versace if you're in that lifestyle. But, I know that isn't how Conor is deep down as a person. He's a good person. And he was driven by an ambition and a belief. And what I'd like to see is the return to, when AJ fought Klitschko and everyone was like, they were just so, it was so good, and it didn't affect the way that they sold the fight. First of all, Klitschko, Joshua was always going to sell. That's one thing. But more importantly, because we'd seen so much shit talking going on, it was like just such a welcome antidote where it was just two guys going in and being respectful to each other and going, yeah, we'll fight. And that brings us back to the Roberts and the Masvidal thing where it's like turn around and he's going, yeah. And he's doing the whole, literally, he's doing the real shit talking Apollo Creed back in the day, nonsense. And he's doing it. And then it's just like Clubber Lang. That's what Masvidal was like. And it was then like, yeah.
You're going to run away some rock.
Yeah. Hey, you move like, he's like, you're like an Italian tank rock. Yeah. Hey, he's a big guy, Mick. What's your weight? About 202 pounds. Rocky Balboa, 202 pounds. Yeah. So, but as young guys will know, Masvidal's just an OG. And he literally is the epitome of an OG.
What was the backyard fights and Kimbo Slice and all that, wasn't it?
This is the like, it always amuses me especially when I see the younger generation coming through and they see it, and it's like everybody looks at say Renzo Gracie's the greatest example. You look at Renzo, and Renzo is a wonderful fucking guy. He is so literally he. I don't know if you saw on my Twitter yesterday, I put how feminism started. Did you see that?
No, no, but it sounds like something you would put up.
There's this really hot smoking looking J-Lo type chick taking a selfie picture in a hairdresser's.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah, I think I shared that,
actually.
It's
got this absolute honey monster of an ugly woman staring.
That's how it started. Yeah, that's hilarious.
The one. Yeah, so the light comes up, Renzo Gracie, and there's all these laughing emojis put on it. And then I get an inbox from Renzo, and it's like, he goes, where are you getting all of this from? But you see, when you see Renzo, everyone goes, oh, he's so funny. He's such a really cool guy. And he is. He's a cool guy. He's really charismatic. He's everything. But I'll tell you right now, if some of the newer guys don't know the story about, when he tweeted the guys when they were trying to mug him in New York, right? Yeah. Two guys were following him in New York, and he basically live tweeted, oh my God, I can't believe they're going to do it. As he said, he double raccooned them, he battered them. And that's what people don't understand is it goes back to where we literally, a good place where we can tie it off, is it goes back to being held accountable for your actions, because, you may think that you're a real badass, but then you got someone like Renzo Gracie he's able to live tweet and batter you at the same time. Mm-hmm. Most people don't have the ability to batter you. But it's like, that whole respectful thing. And it's going to be interesting to see where MMA takes it. Like jiu-jitsu, we're going to be fine because there's enough smart people in there and enough people with integrity to make, as you said earlier, it's a movement, and it's a movement that's got integrity behind it, because it's so hard earned. Every stripe on your belt, you'll have tapped out 2,000 to 3,000 times. That's coming back from adversity 2,000-3,000 times,
Yeah, absolutely. That's how you got to look at it, man.
As I said, I am mindful of the time, man, because,
We'll call it, man. Let's call it there. Thank you so much for coming on, brother.
I'm telling you, you know what? It's been an absolute joy. It's always good to meet a kindred spirit who knows the score. And how is your training going? All right, Jim?
Everything's good apart from the weight, man. My diet's shocking. I've got 4 weeks and I need to just stop eating like a kid, man. We were at a wedding this weekend, so I knew I was going to be a naughty boy and have a couple of beers, like, but
where are you competing?
Where? It's going to be in Edinburgh. It'll be on the 20th of April. I can't remember what this one is, the Scottish Open or the West. No, it wouldn't be the West of Scotland, it'd be the East of Scotland Cup. I don't know. I can't remember. BJJ 24, that's their ones.
Oh, it's 24/7.
Aye, 24/7. That's the same way. I think it is.
You're in for a treat.
I think I did it. Was it 2 years ago? I did that one. Did all right. I walked away with a silver, so I'll see.
Did you?
But no game.
Yeah. What's his name? Oh God. Do you know how bad this is? That's how bad my memory is. I was MC for his Densetsu show. The guy who does BJJ 24/7. Oh, it'll come to me in a minute. He's from Preston, curly-headed guy. Please don't keep this now because he'll go absolute mad. But in my defence, I've been really, really tired the last couple of days. Oh God, it'll come to me. Alex. It will come. Anyway, he runs a really, really good show. But he
Alex Nedden.
Pardon me?
Alex Nedden.
No. It will come to me in a mo. Oh God.
I feel your pain, brother.
Yeah. Do you know what? His face is in my head, and his name is there, but it's like fuzzy, and I can't get it. He refereed me in the. I tell you what he did in the British Open no-gi 3 years ago, and I actually got put through a fucking table, like literally. I was power slammed through the fucking scorekeeper's table.
Huh? Who was it? The Dudley Boys? What was this?
Well, this was the British Open, so it's Bradio Esteema's no-gi, right? And
through a table.
Well, literally, what happened was we were getting nearer to the guy I was going up against. God, he trains with Chris Reese, and he's a really, really good wrestler, a really, really good no-gi guy. And I don't play any no-gi anymore just because the scrambling just kills me. Well, what it is, a young athletic guy will scramble and he'll get you. Whereas if you get the gi on, then I'll just screw with you. And it slows it down and it makes it more methodical. And there's more ways of just, what I like about it is there's more ways of fucking people up with it, it's just like, I'm quite good at that too. But so gi is where I've had all my success in competing. But the no gi, I've always done okay, you know what I mean? But I'd won the gold the year before, and I won that with a footlock. And then what is his name? Alex something.
Just say Alex.
Yeah. So anyway, literally, when it came to the final, crushed the first two guys, no problem. Go to the final and literally lock up, and it literally is. Swear to God, it was like that awful movie. Do you know where Oliver Reed and some guy are like wrestling naked? You know what I mean? It's one of those two middle-aged men wrestling. And I was looking at it and thinking, anyone who's watching this is going to look awful. It's like that. Long story short.
I just love the idea of you stop in time in your own head going, oh man, this is going to look so bad to the audience. Like you're mindful of everybody else.
That was it. Because I had it all planned out. I was like, right, do you know what? We're gonna feel each other out. I'm just gonna arm drag, get round the back, and I'm just gonna jump on him. Right, and that was my plan. And literally, he had the same idea. And cut very long story short, it was a stalemate for like 3 minutes, and even I was bored. You know what I mean? I'm there, and when you're fighting, and you go, "This is shit," because even I'm not enjoying it now. And then obviously, next thing you know, he picks me up, gets the single, goes for the double, and we just end up like going straight through the referee's table, and it was probably the worst. It was simply the worst experience of my life. And I came back and I got the silver medal because he dropped me, but we started then with Alec got me, and he said to me, he got us back to the middle of the area, and what I had to do was I had to go on my back in we had to go just basically he wasn't allowed to establish side control, but he was just about able to get onto to just where it looked like he'd passed, and that's what he said. So literally then he just held me down, and that he just won on that. But yeah, it was horrific. Do you know what? The minute I put the phone down, I'll remember what his second name is.
When you're looking for your car keys or something, that's when you go, that's what that guy's name was, Alex.
I'll tell you something. Aging is not for getting old is not for the weak. I'll tell you that much.
True.
I tell you what, it's been so good talking to you, man.
Thank you so much. My wife's probably going to wonder what's happened to me, man. Either that, she's enjoying about 10 episodes of Hollyoaks, who knows? But
I tell you what, I'll let you go on this. You know, on the Hollyoaks thing. Do you remember Britain's Got Talent years ago?
It kind of. I didn't really watch it much.
Yeah. Did you ever remember the two guys who used to do martial arts to music? Strike.
I think so. Aye.
Yeah. Well, they're both mates of mine. One of them was a student of mine, really good guy, right? And I met him at a seminar, and he turned up in an over-inch Range Rover, and immediately I looked at him, good-looking fella, and he's in an over-inch, and I was like, I hate you already. Then start sparring with him, and he's really, really good. And I'm like, shit, man, I really hate you. And then he says, oh, my girlfriend wants to meet you. And I thought, this is random. So I meet her. She's really, really nice. And then the guys were like, do you know who that was? And I went, who? And they were like, both of them. And I went, no. And they went, well, the blonde kid, he was on Britain's Got Talent. And the guy had said to me, like, I want you to do some seminars for me and stuff. And I'm like, yeah. Girlfriend, Gemma Atkinson.
Who's that? Who's Gemma Atkinson?
Gemma Atkinson was a girl that used to be in Hollyoaks who was on dance, and she ended up being on Strip from Dancing. You see, fair play to you don't know either.
It's right? On all the time. I don't know who the fuck these people are, man. I make it my business not to know. It drives me nuts.
Well, everyone was shocked because everyone was like, don't you know who she is? And I went, no, what's she in? And he went, Hollyoaks. And I went, let me explain something to you. I'm a 44-year-old, I was 44 at the time. I said, I'm a 44-year-old man. I'm not even allowed to watch Strictly Come Dancing with the wife. I said, and if I watch Strictly, I said, I have to always make sure that there's a cushion nearby to hide anything, just in case the wife. I said, wife doesn't trust me with around Hollyoaks. No chance. I said, my wife doesn't even let me have a copy of Looks magazine in the house. You know what I mean? Yeah, they didn't feel my pain. But I tell you what, it's great to back to you, all right?
Thanks very much. That'll get me some brownie points. Thank you very much, brother. Catch you again soon, all right? Take care, man.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Awesome stuff, man. Thank you so much to Mick for giving us his time on the show. I really hope you enjoyed it, guys. We'll be back next week where our Cage Warriors 104 episode will feature fighter interviews with guys like Jack Shore, Scott Malone, Mason Jones and many others. We'll also be speaking to the MMA media as well. We're doing a round table with the guys at Severe MMA and over at Newsome MMA as well. And then after that, on Sunday's live round table, we'll be reacting to UFC Philadelphia. It's Edson Barboza versus Gaethje. It's going to be some scrap, man. My man Paul Berger-Craig is on the card as well. But just remember, if you've liked this podcast, be sure to subscribe on iTunes. We're live every Sunday, 8:30pm, talking MMA. Go to facebook.com/martial arts chat. Give us a like there. Or follow us on Twitter @martial arts chat. I'm John Boy McElroy, and then I'll catch you next time on the Martial Arts Chat podcast.